Record. Diana, thank you for talking with me. Let's start at the very beginning. Where and when were you born?
I was born in California, in Tucson actually, in 2005. So I'm currently 16 years old and a junior in high school.
And what month? I'm interested in your astrological sign.
Oh, in July 15th, 2005.
So you're Cancer.
Yep.
They tend to be sensitive, homebodies, caring, emotional, feel emotions. Does any of that pertain to you or not?
I definitely have a hard time relating to the astrology aspect of that. I mean, I think that all are very applicable to everybody. But I definitely, I think emotional is definitely one that I can resonate with. Being able to, work with other people and just working on being emotionally aware is definitely something that I treasure in myself as well.
I know that you have an older sister. Do you have other siblings as well?
Yeah, so my oldest sister is she's 18. She's just a grade ahead of me. Like I mentioned, I'm 16, and then my brother is actually 9, and my sister is 6. So it's quite an age gap.
Oh, yeah. What role do you think birth order played? Like some people say the firstborns have a lot of expectation to achieve, and the middle child, which I guess you would say you are the kind of the peacemakers, and the younger child may get babied. I don't know. Do you see any birth order influence in your development?
I think what I really realized from birth order development is that I don't want kids. Um, I have definitely had to help a lot with raising siblings, and little kids are annoying to say the very least. But that's okay. But I think what I've realized is kind of just, going into environmental advocacy. I've been told, it's like I have to preserve a world for the future generations and the future kids to come. And what I've realized is, looking at my siblings being these are the people that will inherit, I mean, obviously we're in the same generation, or we're right about there, just, 5 years apart. So it's not that big of a deal. But, realizing that this is for us that we're doing this. It's for our generation, not necessarily the generations to come. In fact, I feel like where a lot of my environmental advocacy work stems from is the fact that what's happening in the world right now is affecting me and my siblings and my parents. And we're always talking about the future generations, and that the future generations are going to have to experience the worst of climate change. And while that is true, it will only get worse from here at the current rate that we're going. It is already bad, and it should already be alarming, and we should already be taking action. So I think that, realizing being a middle child has made me realize, maybe even a little bit of funding for myself, if that makes sense. Of, I having to deal with kids and realizing, they're the future, but they're also the present, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's like living in California, we face fires and drought and all kinds of climate-related problems that aren't future, they're present, they're right in our faces.
Yeah, and I just, as a little side story, I remember specifically for my brother, a couple of years ago, the air quality was purple. There was a wildfire, and that wildfires are part of the natural California environment, but not to the extent of last year. That was crazy, and that was definitely tied to climate change. And I just remember him looking at us, being like, "I want to go play outside with my friends." And my mom had to put her foot down, and she had to be like, "No, you can't. The air is unbreathable." And I think, realizing, my little siblings are facing this, and they're looking and not understanding the world that they're growing up in has played a big role for me as well.
But before we get into your advocacy and what got you started, do you think of yourself as a feminist?
Definitely. I've been really honored to, I've had the opportunity to take a couple of AP history classes. I'm actually taking AP European history right now. And just ironically, we were learning about the second wave of feminism that has taken place in Europe right now. That was taking place in Europe at the time. And I think that, I definitely resonate with the fact that women don't have equal opportunities. And although there have been huge strides to increase, equal pay, equal opportunity, it is still not equal, and there are still many ways that women are face discriminations in our world.
Sometimes people say, I'm not a feminist, but I believe in equality because feminists hate men. Do you hear that kind of argument from your peers, or are most people comfortable saying, of course, I'm a feminist?
I think that there's definitely, just the word feminism has this undertone of, like, a woman that is really aggressive and wants to, take action. And I think that in of itself, the reason the word has that negative connotation is because of the patriarchy, because we believe that, because there's, the common example that a woman in power is a bitch, but a man in power is a leader, and he's leading us forward. And I think that that's exactly, the reason this word feminism has this negative connotation is because a woman that's standing up for herself is annoying, a male hater. No, that's none of it. We have to work together to bring equality. And so I definitely heard that tone, but I definitely completely disagree with that message, and I know that that's not the actual root of the feminist movement.
Mm-hmm. If you are looking for resources about feminism, there's the National Organization for Women, National Women's Political Caucus, Feminist Majority. I don't know. Are there websites or groups or books that have influenced your thinking in terms of learning about the struggle for women's equal rights?
I think that specifically, I think my mom was a really big factor for me. I think that, as many people, I have struggled with body issues as well. And, kind of realizing that a lot of these standards that I felt like I was trying to abide by are created by men. They are an expectation that, are either unrealistic or unhealthy, and just understanding, the research of who designed the high heel. It was a man. Who designed the bra? It was a man. Understanding that so many of these tools that, are used to, beautify women are, in fact, led by men. And my mom was really influential here. She, really helped me gauge, helped me realize by following this path, following this path that has been established by society. You need your waist a certain width, your boobs a certain size. I really, realized, no, this isn't okay. And so I really do appreciate my mom and all of this, but I think that I was also able to connect. I was actually able to connect to some female organizations through my environmental advocacy, which has been really exciting. One of them is the feminist organization. I'm blanking on the actual acronym. I believe it's FMF, Feminist Movement, something like that. I can double check with you later. But the other one was the Indivisible movement, which was led by women after the inauguration of Trump.
By women and men.
What? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Women and men led Indivisible, yeah.
Right. So definitely a lot of, having that be a presence in my at home as well was really influential.
Got it. So I want to tie in this body image to the connection with increasing anxiety and depression. New York Times just did a big article on the crisis of teen anxiety and depression, a crisis, the increase. And since you are a teen, are you okay?
Yeah, sorry, somebody just came up. I got it though.
Okay. What do you see in terms of the connection between social media use and anxiety and depression? Is that the main cause of the increase? If not, what is?
Well, I think specifically as a student who the majority of my high school career right now has been online, and even now that I'm back in school, masks off, it's still very different than it was before. I think that a lot of it has to do with a changing society. I do believe that, social media and the ability to just look online and see, oh my gosh, these people, they're having so much fun, even though obviously they're not posting the boring stuff. I think that, it definitely helps. It creates this feeling of envy and jealousy, which has definitely led to depression and anxiety for me as well, in comparison between body standards. And I think even, I'm not sure how caught up you are on like TikTok and the TikTok trends, but there's a lot of TikTok trends going around right now, like what I eat in a day or what I look like my schedule in the morning. And, a lot of the time it's girls, right, having this like super lean diet, or, those show like their workout routine. And I think it creates a lot of pressure, unnecessary pressure for a lot of people that I've definitely experienced myself. Not just like your lifestyle is not necessarily my lifestyle, but that's okay. But social media creates a platform where somebody can glamorize their life and glamorize their health, even though we don't necessarily see the full picture. And so I think that in the sense that social media does create this really one-sided view for the viewer. So, if I were to log on to Instagram, I don't know, maybe the person got in a big fight with their parents before they left for this party. But, they won't show that. They'll just show a fun picture of them at the party. It's still, it doesn't capture the full picture. And I think when we don't have the full picture, that's when problems arise and we experience jealousy.
Well, what seems to me to be a factor as well is pressure. Pressure to get good grades, take AP classes, do well on the SATs, get into a good university, know you're going to graduate with $35,000 in debt, so you have to get a really good job to pay for your debt. In the meantime, you want to look good like the people on TikTok and Instagram and be an assertive, achieving woman. I mean, that's a whole lot of pressure. And plus, a lot of teens are working and doing after-school activities, and they don't sleep enough. So any comments on that as an explanation of anxiety?
Yeah, I think once again, and I know I keep telling you environmental advocacy here as well, but that has to do exactly with, socioeconomic standings. And, you see people who are, the racial minorities, who do specifically, do especially have to pick up an extra job, that experience even more pressure because, like you mentioned, once you add another factor in, it just complicates everything. So I think, having this, I think, specifically as a college student in a magnet program in Long Beach, I have definitely felt the pressure of, being told from a young age, like, you should reach for the stars, you should try and get into Harvard, you should try and get into Yale. And in reality, I live right next to CSUOB, so a state school, and the education there is just as great. I know that people are always saying, I didn't even have the connections. But I think that, it is what you make of it. And I know that that's really simple to say, and it's definitely something I'm still trying to believe in and trying to accept myself because, I grew up with a cousin who was Ivy League bound, and she ended up going to Duke University, and her sister went to Johns Hopkins, and my brother went to University of Pennsylvania. My cousin went to University of Pennsylvania, and it was just all this. From a young age, they told me you should go to Stanford, you should go to Harvard, you should go to Yale, and it was like, well, what if that's not what I want to do? Maybe that's not where. And just like you mentioned, on top of everything else, finding time to do work, finding time to do advocacy, finding time to do my own work. It's finding time to study for APs, which is currently really big since we're about to enter AP season. But definitely, I think that, all that pressure builds up. And like you mentioned, with social media, you'll see some people posting their grades on Instagram. You'll see some people, posting what they're doing. Like I'll do that too. If I go to like a climate march, I'll post pictures from it. And and I know other people, whatever opportunities they have, they'll often post about it because it's cool and they want to share, but it also does create a sense of, oh, I should be doing that too, or look at how many look how many volunteer hours I bet this person is racking up. I need to step up myself.
How many hours roughly do you average during the school week doing homework?
Homework, so a day I'll probably spend about 5. And on weekends, it's usually a little more if I have the motivation, which I've really been working on. But probably about like 35. I don't know if that's a little excessive. It's a lot though.
And then
especially now with AP studying. And,
yeah. Roughly.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say.
What time do you get to go to bed after doing school activities and homework?
I honestly. I should have to work on my sleeping schedule, so that's definitely one thing to mention. But I'm usually asleep between 12:30 to 1, or around 12 if I can. That's usually the goal. But then I have to wake up around 6:45.
So, all the studies say that's not enough sleep for adolescents. Adolescents need more sleep than that. So that's depressing, not to have enough sleep, in my experience.
No, it definitely, and it sucks the energy out of you. Also, I've definitely seen my mood swing when I, have less sleep. I mean, I know the science is true, but it's also like I guess the other problem is when can I cram anything else? Like if I give myself 2 hours of sleep here, then I'll just have to take 2 hours over here to study for an AP test. And I do understand that there's a certain aspect of I need, like breaks. I don't think that we function well unless we take breaks. And for me that is going on my phone. That can be going on TikTok. That can be watching a movie. And I think that the other thing for me is I don't think I'm willing to give that up either, because I think it's a really important aspect of staying engaged is having that free time to just sit back and enjoy something.
What about exercise? Do you have time for that?
I do. I try and exercise multiple times a week as well. But once again, it's another thing that I have to struggle to fit into my schedule as well.
What's your favorite kind of exercise?
I'll go on a run if I have time. Just, a short jog, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. So what got you started in setting up the Long Beach Green School campaign for 100% renewable energy by 2014? Why did you start that in the face of all the other demands on your time?
Yeah, so first of all, just to clarify, it's 2030 in the electricity sector and in all other energy sectors by 2040. But I think the main reason for me was it was COVID-19. I was entering my sophomore year understanding that everything was going to be online, and I had actually just become a trained climate reality leader. The reason was because my friend had posted that she became one. And, part of me, if I'll be honest, part of me was like, it was the pressure of, shoot, that looks good for volunteer hours. Shoot, that will help her get into college. I should do something like that. So I ended up looking it up. It was a week-long program of intensive Zoom meetings and, writing write-ups. And I ended up getting my trained climate reality leadership certification. And I ended up being able to connect to other organizations, such as the LA Climate Reality Project and their youth committee, who founded the Long Beach Green Schools campaign. Who founded the International Green Schools campaign. And so I decided, I'm really excited about this. Family's always been pretty environmentally passionate. We're also a big family, so we're definitely not helping the environment as much as we should be. And, we are pretty wasteful, and we could implement over the years, we've implemented more eco-friendly practices, but I was able to connect to this amazing group, and I founded the Long Beach Green Schools campaign, which was a satellite of the international movement. And so there was definitely the fact that I had time. It was something I was passionate about. I had also taken an EP environmental science class as a freshman. I was really, I think I've always been my parents have always been preaching to me the importance of, preserving the planet. But I was specifically, energized after taking that class and realizing, this is not okay. I think beyond that, living in Long Beach, we are living in a coastal city. So I get, and specifically in Long Beach, a port city, where West Long Beach, residents of West Long Beach can expect to live 8 years shorter than the average for LA County, because of poor air quality. And, realizing that I was pretty privileged. I lived in a better part of Long Beach. And, while the air quality is still some of the worst in the country, it is, it's on a different level than what people in West Long Beach experience. So I think it was, realizing my privilege. And then on top of that, as a little funny story, this isn't really funny, but that winter, after I founded the campaign, I also broke both ankles in a snowboarding accident. And so I had all of this time as well where I was pretty much just on bed rest. I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't walk. And I kind of just, started sending emails like crazy, connecting to a ton of people. And I realized I was seeing results, and it was extremely exciting.
Who did the training? What organization sponsored your training initially?
So that's the Climate Reality Project. They hold, I believe it's 2 times a year, they hold a session, to educate people. It's youth, adults, honestly, whoever wants to do it. That year it was virtual because of COVID.
And is that a local group, or is that an international group? I've never heard of it.
It's an international group, and they have local chapters. So they have one in Los Angeles that I'm technically a part of.
And then you've also worked with the Sunrise Movement, which is youth-led.
Yeah, so I would say Sunrise Movement's a little more on the millennial side. But yeah, they're a national organization. I worked a lot with their Long Beach chapter. Specifically, they have helped support the Long Beach Green Schools campaign, and that's in addition to countless other supporters. In fact, we recently got the official support of U.S. Congressman Alan Lowenthal. So that was really exciting as well.
And for the Green New Deal, or what was the support for?
His support was actually for our resolution to LBUSD. To Long Beach Unified School District.
So I think you initially, the school board kind of like kind of ignored your petitions and requests to speak. Is that true? And what have you found got them to listen, and what enables your voice to be heard in this campaign?
So I think when we first founded the campaign, when I founded it and I was growing the student coalition and I had my teacher mentor, we pretty much understood that the first year was pretty much going to be impossible to pass a resolution because of COVID-19. We met with a couple of the school board members, and they pretty much said, this is a great idea, can't be done at all this year. We are too busy doing online learning. And we were totally willing to work with that. We understood that there were priorities in the district. And heck, I can't even imagine being a school board official during the pandemic. But then, as the restrictions eased, as we started going back to school, as masks started coming off, there was the understanding of, we can't continue to put this on the back burner. And I think that, as students, naturally, in fact, I'll use the words of the school board president. He met with us a couple weeks ago, for like a 4th time. And, he pretty much expressed to us, this is a system built against you. Because when I graduate, unless I have people trained below me, grade level-wise, then it pretty much falls apart. And so luckily, that's been one thing that we've been really working hard on. In fact, one of my, I call her like my freshman baby. She is, she's amazing, and she's ready to take on the reins after me. But even after her, we need someone, because the thing is that even if we do pass a resolution when I'm here, which is the goal, our goal is early summer, early summer, so around June. even then, we need a task force that's going to keep districts accountable to its work. And that's going to be, this is like a 20 plus year process. So we're going to need someone below her and someone who's, it's just a really long process that we're getting ready to engage in. And so that's definitely something that's been frustrating. But I think, the district seeing that, at the school board meeting, we attend every single school board meeting, provide public commentary. We make sure to have voices from high schoolers and parents and alumni to middle schoolers. We had 2 elementary school kids as well. I think, showing that we're not going away, being really persistent with the resolution language, because I think that it is really easy to, knock off a student group as, they'll graduate or, they're not the adults in the room. But I think becoming really educated, having meetings with district officials, having meetings with district officials from other districts, such as LUSD, who has passed a 100% clean renewable energy resolution, has been the best move to show them, what, when they ask the hard questions, to be like, it makes sense. It's environmentally and economically feasible and logistically sound to make this transition. To pretty much, be prepared to answer all of their questions and answer all of their, their complaints and concerns, because it is the way to move forward and it makes sense. And, I think that there's definitely a lot of, hesitancy, because we are a district we're a district in a city that relies on fossil fuel money. I mean, we have the Port of Long Beach. That is our main source of income. So I think it's, bringing awareness, building up the public pressure, maintaining a presence on social media, maintaining a presence at their school board meetings, continually requesting for meetings, and not falling back, continuing, following up on emails over and over, making calls, just, making sure that they know our name and that the rest of the community knows our name as well.
What do you anticipate to enable green power? Solar panels are probably the most obvious because you can put them on top of school buildings. What are you advocating for so it's 100% green?
Yeah, so we're specifically focusing on the energy aspect, although there are many different ways, like plastic reduction, but that we're focusing on the energy reduction aspect. So it kind of is like a two-pronged approach. So first, you have to work on energy efficiency, because if you can create more, you can use more and more energy, and you can create an infinite amount of solar panels, but that won't. Well, sorry. The point is you can't create an infinite amount of solar panels. So you have to start by cutting down energy sources. So one of the things is energy efficiency programs. So whether that's heat pumps, which are more efficient ways to heat and cool a building, or light sensors, so lights just aren't on once one isn't in the room. Those are just a couple of ways. I also know of a silicone mask that can go on roofs that helps reflect light. So less money has to be spent on heating and cooling. But beyond that, our 2 big pushes are for solar panels, just because this is a great environment for them. There's many different technologies that make solar panels cheaper. For example, one of the companies that we've been talking to, called Feminists, they have a strap-on technology that essentially means that you don't have to drill into a roof. You can, they have as I understand it, it's like a Velcro type material, and it's cheaper. You don't have to drill into the roof. So that, there's so many options available there. But the problem, and then the other big solar panel movement would be with carports. So essentially on top of parking lots, which is really the best way to move forward, because it's cheaper than installing on roofs, since you don't have to do all those roof repairs. It also helps reduce the heat islands, which is like a domino cascade effect. If we help reduce that there, then there's already less money spent on heating and cooling around the city as a whole. But honestly, solar panels definitely won't be able to cover everything. So you can buy clean energy from your utility. So SoCal Edison offers 100% clean energy power mixes for LVUSD. For all of its customers, technically. The problem is it does come with a 9% cost increase. But that has to do with electricity, and that's actually the easiest aspect about the conversion. The really challenging aspect would have to do with the fleets, and LVSD does not have its own school buses. We actually go through a third party, but there are other so many different ways to finance fleets, and obviously installing like electric battery charging stations for the fleet. But just as an example, there's money from the Volkswagen scandal that's available to districts, and many districts across the state and the country have been able to utilize that to purchase, bus fleets and fleets that run on clean energy. But it's definitely a mixture of a lot of things. It's not a one and done transition. What we're looking more is, as schools transition, we will transition off of fossil fuels, because it doesn't, for a lot of schools, in fact, a lot of schools have recently been upgraded. It doesn't make sense financially or environmentally to replace all of their equipment right now. It just won't, it's new equipment. We need to give it time to wear out. And so, yeah, it's definitely a mixture of slowly a gradual transition to electrical power equipment, to solar panels, to clean energy supplied from the utility, all while keeping in mind the financial pathways available to us.
Do you ever get patronized, oh, you cute little girl, kind of a feeling from like school board members or administrators, or do you ever feel patronized because of your age, and if so, how do you deal with it?
Definitely. We actually presented at a school board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was a really exciting opportunity because we were able to, for the first time, present in front of the school board in a discussion set. Because at a regular school board meeting, they're not technically allowed to respond to you. So we were really excited going into this, but it kind of ended up becoming this, like how we all understood. There were three of us that went, and how we felt was, the school board was looking at us, and they all said, "We're so proud of you. This is amazing," and it kind of became this feeling of, "Yay, LBUSD students are engaging in civic activity. Go us!" And that was not the message that we wanted. We wanted to see, them follow up with us. And, we have gotten some responses since, but one of the school board members, if I'm being quite frank, told us at the meeting, "You guys are doing great." And we've sent him half a dozen emails since and called his office as well with no response. And so I think, definitely feeling that, like, I don't want to be a tree hugger, and I'm not a tree hugger. None of us, I firmly would argue that nobody in our campaign is a tree hugger. We've done our research. We understand the financial pathways available. And we're not just going to stand around and say, LBUSD should take action. No, we have a plan. We know that LBUSD needs to take action, and we're showing them how, and we're working with energy experts across the country, across the school districts in LA, across the schools in California and the nation, to see what they've done, how they've implemented, and how it can be applied to LBUSD as well.
Were the other two female who went with you to the school board?
One of them was a female, one of them was a male, but we all had the same sentiment of, understanding. Like, I think that we understand that by no means is it like they're two-faced. I never want it to seem like that. They are incredibly busy. I solely believe that being on a school board right now, especially with the COVID pandemic, is one of the hardest jobs possible right now. But I think, wanting to be taken a little more seriously is definitely something that we can all, especially as students, resonate with.
The reason I'm asking is I interviewed over 50 young women for my book, Climate Girls, Saving Our World, and some of them said that boys in high school were intimidated about being activists because it was seen as weird, or they didn't have the courage that the young women did to be, quote, seen as weird as one of the climate girls, the activists. Do you see any gender differences or not?
Um, I would have to say, yeah. Haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about it, but now that you mention it, the majority of the people on our campaign are females. In fact, I would say we have about 4 to 5 females that are actively like attending every single meeting. In fact, more if you consider the adults as well. And if you consider our male teachers, we have 2 males that are, really, really engaged. And I would say, even in our club at school, because we're a district-wide movement, but since Long Beach has so many schools, we have like different chapters, you could say, at different high schools. So I lead the Long Beach movement and the one at Poly. And then, in fact, all the other ones that are led at the other schools are all led by females as well. So I think that there's definitely a higher female presence, and I looked the statistic up the other day because I'm doing a research project for another class regarding greenwashing, and I found that females are a lot more likely to detect greenwashing, and I think that part of it has to do with the compassionate aspect. I mean, I hate to say females are more compassionate than men, but I think that they're based off of research, women are more in tune to the climate issue or more willing to take action. Why exactly? Is it because men are afraid to stand up? Possibly. I don't know if I'm to say.
And define greenwashing, please.
So greenwashing would essentially be like a company that, so kind of here, just to get a couple steps back. So obviously there's a consumer movement right now towards greenifying the world. People are willing to spend more money on products that are labeled, that they perceive to be environmentally friendly. And the thing is that to make their products more environmentally friendly, these companies have to invest a lot of time, resources, money into, either transitioning off of fossil fuels or, using more sustainable products in their, sustainable materials for their products. So a lot of companies will either, make ads that make it look like they're really environmentally friendly or outright lie. I mean, one example that just the one I used in my own research project was Starbucks and their ad for their strawless lid. And, a lot of people, especially with the Save the Sea Turtles movement that is really prominent among my age group, a lot of people were like, oh, look at Starbucks being, a steward of the environment. And if you look at it, the straw lids actually use more plastic. I mean, the strawless lids use more plastic than the previous lid and the straw. And in addition to that, even if it did use less plastic is still, fossil fuel heavy. It is still only about 9% of the world's plastic is recycled. So even then, it's not by any means an environmentally friendly product. It's just made to look environmentally friendly for consumers so that they will continue buying. And so in the research I conducted, which was by no means high level, it was for my 11th grade AP research class, I did find that women were, it was statistically significant that women were able to identify greenwashing at a higher level.
An issue in progressive organizing groups is we want to get things done, but we don't want to have a military hierarchy. We don't want to have a big boss, a media star. So that's been a trend in the women's movement since the 60s, is how do we get things done without having a military structure, but having it be so loose that nothing gets done because we're trying to operate by consensus and it takes forever and people are burned out by the time consumption. What do you find in terms of how do you run an organization that gets something done and uses consensus in some ways?
Yeah, I think that for me specifically, that's obviously been a really hard aspect, even getting people engaged, and, making sure they continue to attend the meetings, because it isn't a one-woman show. We have we meet with people from the LA Climate Reality Project and Sierra Club on a weekly basis to assist, and it's really the students of Long Beach that we continue to not pressure, but make sure that they stay engaged. Like I mentioned earlier, we need students down the line to be engaged. But I think specifically regarding, how I manage, what I've learned works the best is having a core group. So having like chapters at each school and having people that are, attending the meetings at school and, willing to take action to the extent of they'll attend a march or rally maybe once or twice a year, but not something that they'll want to attend a meeting every week and dedicate dozens of hours a week to this project. And I think what I realized is people that are really passionate about this find their way to the program. In fact, the four of us that are, currently attending every meeting, the board meetings, attend the meetings with the facilities directors, but everybody, they are all people that have actually reached out to me, which is really, I think, shows that, you can, I forgot the quote, you can walk the horse to the water, but you can't,
make them drink
the water.
Yeah. Take the horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
And we've promoted it and we've encouraged people to join, but people will only help to the extent that they want to, and that's okay because that's how you find out who is really willing to do the work. And so I think I think that once those it's changed a little bit because a couple of people have gone to college since the program was initiated, but the current four of us that are really working, I don't think that we really have to establish a hierarchy. I think there is not really a hierarchy because we're all really passionate about this issue, but I can see why that would be a problem of not wanting to be this I never wanted to be like, oh, there's me and then there's everybody else, because that's not what the environmental movement is either. There's all of us and we all have to work together to save this earth, and not save this earth because earth will be fine. Earth, at the end of the day, whatever happens, it's humans that we're worried about. The earth, it might not be inhabitable to us or the other creatures, but earth will survive. It'll go through some regenerative process. Maybe a couple volcanoes will blow up. Things will be fine for the earth. It's us that we're worried about. So if we're really, if we want to preserve ourselves, then we have to take these actions.
So how do you make sure things get done? Do you have an agenda for the meeting and you follow the agenda? What do you do if you have a talker? What do you do if you have someone who says I'll do it and they don't? There has to be some kind of authority in a way to make sure tasks are completed. Is that true or not true?
Absolutely. I think, kind of like I mentioned before, and this has definitely made this project so labor intensive, is the majority of the work, the majority of writing emails, which there's a lot of them, is split up between the four of us. It's, we usually, for example, the guy that's in our campaign, he was the one who was primarily in charge with contacting Lowenthal's office. We have one of the other girls is primarily working on contacting an organization known as Perma City or Algalita. So, we kind of have our groups that we work with, and I usually do the contact with the school district. But I think, in terms of everybody else, we've tried doing some projects where it's where we really needed a lot of research done. We tried, splitting up the work. It didn't really work out. What's really expected of everybody else is they attend the meeting once a week and know what events are coming up and really see if they can attend the meetings, even if it's just to add a couple comments here and there. But I would say the majority of the burden falls on four of us, which, I think that we've handled it, and it does, it would be nice sometimes to split work up more so, but I think at the end of the day, we understand that, I think that's the most effective way for the work to be done.
And they've proven that they're responsible. So if they say they're going to do
Oh,
it,
absolutely.
they do it. Yeah, that really helps. So what I was able to see in reading about you, the tactics that you've used are the resolution to the school board, speaking at town hall meetings, holding rallies, petitions, meeting with the education leaders, including the school board, having task forces, working with Sunrise, International Green Schools campaign, Sierra Club Ready for 100 campaign, Climate Reality Leadership Corporation. So is there anything that I'm leaving out in terms of how you get the word out and achieve your goals?
Definitely, like coalition support is something we're really big on. I can actually share our coalition sign-on letter. We have about, it's either between like 20 to 30 organizations, but like indivisible signed on. I, off the top of my head, or like Congressman Lowenthal signed on, and there's a ton of other organizations as well. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up, is the public pressure aspect of it, and then legislative action, where, understanding that there has to be language in a document to keep the district accountable. But even then, we need language in the same document that calls for a task force that will keep the district accountable to the language of the document. So it's definitely a slow process, and making sure that there's no loopholes.
Is your sister at the same school, and is she involved? Have you gotten her involved in the campaign?
I think that we do go to the same school and the same program. I think she was kind of forced to, just by obligation. I mean, like, especially when I didn't have my license and I needed someone to drive me to a meeting, she would often have to step up. She definitely isn't nearly, I lead this. She doesn't have, she's not one of the 4 people. She doesn't attend our regular meetings. She attends our club meetings. But beyond that, she'll attend. She's more of like somebody who will attend the fun stuff, like the rallies. And we need people like that, which is, I'm, totally content with the extent that she's helped out with. She has also helped out a lot with Instagram as well, and, helping create engaging posts, which has been incredibly helpful.
Among your student body, is it accepted that being an environmentalist is cool and necessary, or is it something like, oh, you are weird tree huggers, we're the jocks, and we're not interested in that? What's kind of the environment around you in your poly high?
I think that's actually really interesting that you mentioned, because it's really widespread. We have some people that don't even question it, that aren't just like, oh yeah, this has to be done. You're not and people, that really get to understand the campaign realize we're not tree huggers. We understand the legislative action behind it. But I think that there's definitely a couple of, I think that in and of itself, environmentalism is a rather, I hate to say it like this, but, an elite movement. Not elite, as in, here, let me elaborate. I think that, if you're someone who's struggling to get food on the table for your family, you're not going to worry about buying biodegradable napkins. You won't, and I think biodegradable napkins are also a greenwashing scam. So maybe that wasn't even the best example, but if you're someone who is living paycheck to paycheck, you won't be able to pay a 9% cost increase that is offered by SoCal Edison to upgrade to clean energy. That's just not in your power. And so I think that there's a sentiment like that of, you guys are privileged. And that is, I think that's one of the reasons I entered environmental movement, was because I do understand. I am privileged. My house won't be in, Long Beach is going to experience 2 feet of sea level rise. I live upstream enough that that's not going to be a problem. I'm able to, when the air quality is really bad, I get to stay home. I'm really privileged. And, even I would say America in itself, as a fairly wealthy country, we're not like Bangladesh right now. We're not you're not going to be swept underwater and have nowhere to go. I mean, the closest example is Miami. They'll be swept underwater, but they'll just move upstream. Move, upshore. That won't be a problem for them. So I think that a lot of, environmental activists happen to be the people who have time for this, who aren't worried about feeding their families. And I think that, there's a couple of students who've made jokes about, who like nitpick me about it. And I think that, some of it's just something I have to, understand. I know the best example I can give you is once somebody, one of the people on our Instagram was posting about black plastic, which is a particularly dirty form of plastic. And that day, one of my friends just happened to be, I think he had gotten a sandwich from a store, and it was packaged in black plastic. And he ended up being like, "Oh, Diana, look, can we not be friends right now?" And I was like, no, I don't for some people, it's more convenient to buy a sandwich on the way home. I mean, the way to school, I'm not in a position to judge because I don't know what their home life looks like. And I mean, yes, in an ideal world, they would be using a reusable container. But at the end of the day, I think my other big point in taking this environmental action is while we all hold a special role in this movement, if every single person takes little steps, that still won't be enough. It's up to the big corporates. It's up to the school districts. It's up to the big decision makers to make the decisions. Because, yes, my family creates X amount of fossil fuel emissions, but it's the big players. It's who we buy from. And yes, we can choose to. People who can afford it can buy from more sustainable companies. But the people who don't have the money, they don't have the option to. And even if you look at it, I forget the exact term, but there's a special term for environmental racism associated with food. You see
there's
poor
food
neighborhoods.
Food deserts where they have like 7-Eleven or some kind of convenience store, but no market with good fresh vegetables and that kind of thing. Is that the word?
Yeah. There are parts of Long Beach you'll drive by and there's like In-N-Out, Carl's Jr., McDonald's, but you don't see a Trader Joe's. And I think once again it's just understanding that this is a very this movement does have. I feel like the environmental movement has a bad rep because it's not always the people who need it the most aren't able to participate at the same extent that I think that they would like to, because it is a very intensive process. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope so.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And as you say, if you have to work after school to help your family out, you're probably not going to have time to go to environmental meetings or go to school board meetings or that kind of thing. So that is kind of a privilege. I know that at one point you thought about being an orthopedic surgeon because you're breaking your ankles. Is that still something you're thinking you want to do?
Yeah, I think that environmental sustainability and action is always something I would like to pursue. But I had the most amazing doctor when I broke my ankles, which is, she was just so cool and really, she would take the time to just, explain what was happening in my body. And she was like, and this is how your bone is rebuilding. And I just thought it was incredibly fascinating. So I think that is what I'm interested in. But honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing in terms of my future. So I think I'm playing it by ear as well.
Yeah, you have plenty of time. It's not imminent. Could you just say a word in terms of what you observe about the boy? People call it the boy crisis. That males are 40% of college students, women are 60%, and that's typical around the world except sub-Saharan Africa. What's going on with the boys that you see at school?
Well, it was funny that you bring this up as well, because the other day my teacher made a comment about this. I was sitting in my my AP European history class, and looking around, and we were learning about like the first grade of feminism. So, and he made a comment about the fact that there was probably like a 1-to-4 ratio. There were, and it's, I'm
in your class?
I have, yeah, boys to girls. We definitely have a lot more girls. I honestly have not done enough research to explain to you why that is, but I definitely have observed it where, where there's an increasing proportion of the students that are, in the high magnet, high achieving classes are female.
Some people say they blame the women's movement and all the discussion of toxic masculinity and the future is female, and so that boys don't feel as good about themselves. I don't know. Does that ring true at all or not?
I can't say that I've observed that. I mean, I think that it is. I definitely. I guess I'm in a position where I observe it's happening, and I can tell you, yeah, majority of the people in my class are female, but I wouldn't say that's it. Like, I've never had a kid, at least like any of the kids in my class, be like, oh yeah, I wish there were more of us because, you guys are telling us we're toxic, and look at us, now we're outnumbered. I've never observed that, so once again, I guess I can't really speak to why that is.
It's really interesting. I mean, some people say, well, they can get a job after high school making money as, a blue collar worker, and they don't want to go to college and end up with a huge student loan debt or something. But I don't know. If you figure it out, let me know, because it's definitely a phenomenon. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
is there anything that we haven't talked about in terms of what makes an effective organizer, or how to influence people who have power and authority, that we haven't talked about?
I think the only aspect that I might want to touch upon, and I'm sure that you hear this all the time, is regarding to, being a female leader. I think that I've talked to my mom about this because she was in a position like, for her, it was like she was a leader in an art studio. She had to command people what to do, many of which were male. And I think that there is I won't say the word, but the BITC word. I think that there's a feeling of a woman, a leader is a BHTH, but a male leader is inspiring. And I guess I feel that way sometimes. Of I wish I could feel more like myself. I wish I could, really I guess not even I wish. It's more like I wonder. I wonder what a guy in my position would feel like. Would he be more? Would he be more modest? Would he be more out there? Would he be the same as me? Who knows?
Yeah. Do you see any difference between your generation Alpha and a little bit older generation Z, and then millennials? Is it too soon to see any generational differences? Do you notice anything? Maybe you don't know many Z's.
Wait. So what years are these again? What's the
They're like
year?
23 and older.
Okay. So are they are they after millennials then?
Yeah, it goes Y,
Okay.
millennial, Z, and then Alpha, your generation, and I think Alpha starts around 2000.
Got it.
I'll have to
Yeah.
check.
I honestly, I don't think I have enough. I don't know enough people that are in like their 20s, and
Yeah,
the people that I do know are honestly primarily from the Sunrise Movement, because that's where I know a lot of like the youth and right on the brink of being a millennial. So I can't say. All I can say is that regarding Alpha generation, we are all over the place because 2 years of online learning does some stuff, and people act a lot differently than how I remember.
how so? That's interesting. They're
There's just,
weirder because
I
they're not used to
yeah,
socially interacting.
yeah, I would say that. I think even like people that are that are ninth graders now, when I still consider them sixth graders because they never got those to be seventh and eighth graders. And, you go into middle school as a sixth grader, you kind of get pressured into saying the right stuff, not saying weird stuff by the seventh and eighth graders. And then you enter high school, and then you get pressured by the, 10th and 11th and 12th graders to not do the weird stuff. But, they never had that first wave of, like, no, that's not socially acceptable. You don't say stuff like that. I mean, if you, like, this is kind of weird, but apparently I can't even confirm that this is accurate, but one of the students who is in the same program as me, I'm an 11th grader, but apparently she was a ninth grader, and she came up to one of my teachers that I had in ninth grade and just said, "You're hot," and walked away. It's things like that are like, no, you don't say stuff like that. So yeah, we're all over the place. I think that we're like a one whack generation.
Wow. And then, it seems to me that Trump plays a part in the chaos too, because there's been so much divisiveness, red, blue, and he does so many crazy things all over the place that it's kind of sets an environment of craziness.
Absolutely. I know. I'm in a pretty progressive part of Long Beach. Just of the nation. Long Beach is a really progressive city. First LGBTQ mayor, and even us, we had some Trump supporters that were kind of like that would make their opinions really public and post about it on Instagram. And we just have we'd see these debates going on between the students in our class based on politics. And I think even beyond that, even in ninth grade, you're a representation of your parents' thoughts. I think by the time you're more my age, this is a key critical time period where you're kind of coming into your own thoughts and realizing what you believe. But before then, I would say that, you are your parents' beliefs. And so I think, it was really a divisive time, and it still is. I definitely experienced by myself and, seeing people, literally seeing friendships get torn apart because somebody was a Trump supporter or somebody was a Biden supporter or whatever the other candidates were at the time.
So that's a triple whammy. We have COVID, we have the environmental crisis, we have the divisiveness that Trump is a part of, and being a home away from school socialization. So those are a lot of confusing, sad, worrisome trends that young people are growing up with.
Absolutely. And not even to mention the technology that so many people had access to, so many young people had access to unrestricted access to.
That's a great point, because then they're doing porn and they're doing hate stuff and really radical across the board stuff that is too much for someone who's 13 or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Thank you.